We can share.
You mean lunch?
All right. Exactly. We are live and we'll call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. And so with that, would someone like to adopt the agenda?
Hillary, I move that we adopt the agenda.
This is the July session. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Can I just for one
worries.
moment say that the Hillary made a motion to adopt the agenda at
Yes.
12:04,
And
second
Vanita.
by Vanita,
Yes.
and Eve is absent. And we began the meeting at 12:03. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. All right. Moving on, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll stand. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to the first agenda item for action and discussion today, 2025-2026 OUSD enrollment and programming.
Okay. Thank you. So that's really the reason we're here. Just talking about some programming and enrollment updates for the next school year. And considering that this was a rather hefty agenda item, that's why we recommended it to be in a separate agenda item or separate meeting. So thank you so much for taking your Friday afternoon and being here. We really appreciate it. And thank you to all the directors too, and our audience. Who has color coordinated, and we really appreciate that as well. We did not get the memo, but the slide, you do match with the slides. So, so with that, just an overview of what we're going to talk about. We'll go through the enrollment update, and I did actually, right before the meeting, did a last minute enrollment update. The presentation reflected yesterday's numbers, and we wanted to see, did anybody register yesterday afternoon? And because the school sites have been contacting parents who had an incomplete registrations and so on. So we did actually post a presentation up there, and it says so with up to date, like as of last half an hour numbers. So you see those in there, and the board has them on paper as well. So we'll go through the enrollment update. We'll talk a little bit about TK5 programming, mainly focusing around TK program itself. And then and then also the special day class programming for the 25-26 school year. We'll just very briefly touch upon OIS enrollment and then special education programming in general. And then we'll get into an action item, which is our course catalog, and then finally the new course process. So that's just sort of the overview. Throughout the time, I'm going to look to mainly Sarah and Stephanie for some of these questions, any facility issues over there, and Brian for some staffing. So, and then please ask questions as we go throughout, since there's quite a bit here. Okay, so we've been talking about enrollment throughout the year. We did a demographic study actually last May to evaluate the enrollment across the district. This was the second of the demographic study, and I think a fourth update by the demographer, because our enrollment is a little tricky in Orinda. While it's not growing significantly, there is a growing that's uneven. When we say that, it's growing in the earlier grades, and it's also growing in certain areas of Orinda, while sometimes it's declining in other areas of Orinda. So because of that unevenness, we've actually adjusted boundaries a couple of years ago, and so that's why we keep monitoring to see what are the effects of those adjustments. So the last demographer study was in May, and then if you might remember, that link at the bottom is their last presentation to the board, which was in November. The enrollment in our TK5 is actually increasing, while currently it doesn't say that. We continue to get new enrollment every day, and we also expect enrollment during the summer. So last summer, we actually got 50 new students enrolled. So we are nervous about that, because That hasn't been the trend in Orinda in the past to get so many new enrollments. Which puts quite a bit of pressure on our classrooms, facilities, and staffing in very last minute. And then middle school is expected to stay flat, if not a slight decline in enrollment. And that's not because of decline in enrollment in our middle school in general, it's just how the grade cohorts go. So this is the projections. These are actuals as of the actual numbers, which is that sort of brownish, was reddish, but it looks brown in here, it uses the pending registration, meaning parents that have already registered but are maybe missing a document or two, so they're not fully in yet, but they have committed to being in here. So you can see the blue line is our 24-25 current enrollment in those classes. 25-26 is what the demographer projected. And then the brown line is our actual enrollment, people that have submitted their paperwork in, and maybe, some may be missing something. For the most part, they're completely enrolled. So the biggest discrepancy is in the TK numbers, and we don't know if those parents are actually waiting to see if they are to enroll, or they're deciding to keep the kiddos in preschool. So. Oops, sorry. Same information, just in the table form. And you can see at the bottom, I said we just updated it about half an hour ago. What the board has also is a breakdown by school site in front of you. And again, just very last minute information, just so that you can have it accurately. The numbers here, while there's a 43 student difference between, we were projecting at about 80 student difference by a demographer, 43 students more in TK than what it is right now presents a pretty significant change because of the facility needs. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, unless there's questions on the enrollment. Okay, all right, I'm going to jump over then. So our 25-26 school year that's coming up is a full implementation, the first year of full implementation of TK enrollment, and that is to include all students who turn 4 years old by September 1. The TK has unique needs that are different than any other school, any other grade level. Teacher has to have specific credential with early childhood units. So we want to make sure and have early understanding of who we need to hire because every single school district in California is going through this. So we want to get those teachers out there very quickly. Facilities must have a certain square footage. So while our regular classroom is just around 900, 860 or so, that's not a requirement, but that's what our average is. TK has to be around 1,300 square feet. So that's a significantly larger classroom. They have to have bathroom access. And while it can be in the pod, so there was 2 TK rooms they could share, the younger these students are, we can't have them have far away TK bathrooms. So while K students, kindergarten students have sort of a similar or same requirements, you can send a kindergartner like in a shared pod classroom, but some of our TKers are actually still learning to go to the bathroom. They still have, as Sarah knows, and Stephanie, they have developed toileting plans. So to have 4-year-olds or students that have just turned 4 or are 3 and turning 4 in August, you can't send them away. And you can't send an adult away because then who's watching the other kiddos? So we have to have a bathroom in the room. So the restroom, easy access to drop off and pick up. That's a mandate as well. So we can't have rooms that are in the back. They actually have to have classrooms. Otherwise, we're sending parents across the entire, because they have to be able to drop them off. So, and they have to have access. We didn't even start talking about here, TK yard that has to be accessible. While they don't have to be connected, every time you think about TK, you should be planning for that because then you're walking them across the yard. with all sorts of distractions for 4-year-olds if you don't have that yard right there. So there's a lot of facility demands on the TKers. Another thing that's beginning in 25-26 is there has to be a 10-to-1 ratio. Right now it's a 12-to-1 adult ratio. That doesn't mean 10-to-1 teacher, it's an adult. So the way that we're all dealing with that really in the district is 1 teacher, 1 aide that's in there the entire time. But that means when we're looking at our class sizes, if there's a 21 students in a classroom, you're actually getting penalized financially. You're not getting that TK add-on on your LCFF formula. If you do not, and this was explained to us in Sacramento this week, you don't get a TK add-on. You get financially penalized for having an additional student unless you get a 3rd adult in there. So now you're hiring more people because you have an extra kiddo and so on. So there's actually real financial implications of going, having 21 children. And if you see, our packages of kids don't come in 20s or 22s. So it's
Yeah, with the exception of Sleepy Hollow, the school site is projected for more than.
correct. Yes. Right. So we currently in a district are very constrained and have limits to TK offerings because of the facilities. And it is unfortunate that the facilities, I actually think we've been able to attract really highly qualified staff, which is what often districts are having a hard time. That has not been our issue. We are excited by our teachers. We're really thrilled with our curriculum. It's the facility constraints. And the budget does not, while they offer some incentive or additional funding for the 10-to-1 ratio, or it is in the budget currently, and we hope it stays there. There is no support for the facility expansion. I think it's probably because some of the larger districts or most of the larger districts are in declining enrollment, and it's probably not as big of an issue. They probably have extra classrooms. So I would assume that they're not lobbying as heavily. But us down the corridor, it's a really big issue. So the way we have been expanding in these facilities, we have to use our own local dollars. That's not bond money because our bond money is already spent or allocated and it hasn't been voted for this. So all we can do is use either our general fund or developer fees. And that's what we've been using is developer fees. With that said, our developer fees are limited it's one pot of money and dwindling, right? So it's not like something that's replenishable or ongoing. So there's, until we start building new things in Orinda, there's not that much new money coming in there. So that's gonna start going away. So with that, some consideration for the board and for our discussion here is we're just sort of thinking like, so how do we, because we have a challenge in front of us. We have a mandate and we're excited to welcome all these 4-year-olds on our campus. They're cuteness therapy and we love the curriculum and we want to support them. But it is a challenge. It presents a challenge for us actually. How do we accommodate this increased enrollment? So we're sort of looking at, okay, well, there's kind of like 3 ways to do this. And it's really 2 options in how do we deal with increased enrollment in that one band. So I'll start actually with the middle, which is this resident school, which is boundary change. We've already talked about this because the impact is uneven. That if there's an area in Orinda, and we can pull up a map if I think the board probably remembers, that is actually closer to Glorietta than to Wagner. It's on that side of the freeway. And several parents already request intra-district transfer to go to Glorietta as opposed to Wagner. Right now, their home school is Wagner, but they're closer to Glorietta. Because the Glorietta school is going down a little bit and Wagner is heavily impacted, that we would almost start like a soft redistricting where we would go to every single one of those families and say, we offer you Glorietta. And they can still say, no, thank you. But actually at the TK parent night, those parents, the handful of parents that were there, they were actually inquiring about that. They wanted to go to Glorietta because it's closer to them. Any talk of potential boundary changes in the future, they wanted to be ready for their future kiddos there anyway. So we could offer that to them.
And how many was that?
I mean, they talked about, there was a couple of them families that talked to us directly. But we're starting, now that we have them in the system, we can start identifying and moving.
And are they're in that area?
Yes. But it's not going to make the difference that we need it to make.
Got it.
The other aspect of the challenge of that is there's no bus that goes there.
Mhm.
And these families depend on the busing of their older children too. So there's a bus route that goes there and takes those kiddos to Wagner and so unless we can change somehow a bus route, but that would affect all sorts of other buses. So we would have to do a bus study of what we can do. So I think that can alleviate a little bit of pressure, but just not enough. So, and it is something that we will need to consider in the future. And we've talked about that. So we're going to move forward with that as discussed in November. What we have heard from talking with the families that already go to Wagner, or some of them actually even go to Delray, they don't want to move. And they have older children. So it's just the new ones are okay. They want to stay where they want to stay.
So we had talked about that as being
Right.
part of if we were
And that
going to
would
be doing
be-
some
yes.
zoning was to do newer families.
Right. So we're going to offer it to all the new ones and see if they would go. And then we'll work with the bus company to see what would a redesign of transportation look like.
And how often will we reassess that,
As many,
times
we have the contract with the school works, we can do it as often as we.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing, sometimes the boundary, like this boundary doesn't, we haven't even fully seen the effects of that change between Sleepy and Wagner. Because we grandfathered in all the siblings, it takes like 4, 5, 6 years to see the effects. And that's just not fast enough, I think. So I think that's a long-term plan, but it may not be quick enough for what we need right now.
Are there a lot of TKers that take the bus right now?
If they have a sibling, they
They are
will.
allowed, okay. But
Sometimes
if they
they're allowed,
don't have
but
the siblings,
they're very rarely are they on a bus.
just imagining 3 and 4-year-olds on a bus.
Very rarely. So that leaves us to, okay, so then we need more room. How do we create more room, right? So more facilities. Tons of space. Stewards, yes. So, I mean, we can't go up.
Yeah.
Clearly, our roofs can hold HVAC and that's about it. So we clearly are not going up, nor do we have funding for that. I mean, we just recently did an evaluation of just adding like some BASC and STC portables. And I mean, the options were so limited. We walked every single elementary school campus with our architect, our construction project manager, Stuart, and Stephanie, when we were looking at facilities. So all facilities were already walked for options. And 2 of 4 were just a no-go, period, because we just couldn't put it there, either due to topography or just impact as it is. One would have, been extraordinarily expensive due to because of all the utilities. Delray was an option just for one building. So it just doesn't answer it, right? So adding more buildings on our very compact, closed-in campuses without some major effects, like moving into neighboring properties would be pretty challenging. So, clearly we could go onto our blacktops, limit some play areas, or if we had significant funding or coming in to bring in, I'm thinking like, for example, like a Glorietta, that upper field is not used as much, like where that amphitheater is, right? You could possibly, there's space there for additional couple portables, for example, But the expense that we were hearing is so extraordinary because there's no utilities there at all.
There's no plumbing,
No
Yeah.
plumbing, gas, electrical, none of it. So then you're talking about building a whole section of a school, basically, is the price of it. Wagner, for example, has maybe one area where we can add a portable just to satisfy their basic needs. Anywhere else is the same. And we've already added 2 portables on their blacktop. So how much playground area are we going to limit unless we go into their gardens? And some of their area is also news to me, 4th bore soil, like actually dirt from the 4th bore, the tunnel. So it's so soft, you actually can't, like, that would be the extreme expense. So because there's so much compaction.
Yeah, compaction.
Correct. So there's just those kind of issues that you just, like you assume like, well, there's this wonderful space right here. Like, oh, well, who knew, right? And then, so really Delray was an option where we are bringing in a portable, but that's kind of it. But with that said, I do think that actually we should, and Sleepy Hollow is so tight as it is. There are some facility like uses that we could explore. We have science and science rooms. We have art and art rooms. Schools that are really highly impacted have science on a cart, art on a cart. I'm not saying that those are great practices. I'm just saying those are options. Our students benefit going into a science room. Our STEAM rooms are phenomenal. Our art rooms are great. So we love those kind of things. Those things, promote fundraising. They also promote wonderful programming. But if expanding, that is one way to expand facilities.
So the bathroom.
But expanding like right.
Other things
Yeah.
around.
So like, do you expand, like you're almost shifting kindergarten into regular room,
Right, and
regular
moving a
room,
classroom over
if
there.
there's a bathroom available. Some schools don't even have that actually. But like a Sleepy Hollow, I'm thinking they have a science room with a bathroom, old Basque, but it's
Yeah.
also not close to a yard or a drop-off area. So there's other aspects. There's just a lot of complications to it. On a facility note, I don't think it's a bad idea, and I would just throw this out there for thought, to do a facility master plan and hire like a consultant, because we're gonna have to have one for Prop 2 funding. Proposition 2 is that statewide bond. That's one of the mandates. Mika and I just heard that in Sacramento. We have approved that consultant to get us writing of the grant, but they can't actually do a plan. And us internally doing a plan is not something what you do. These are people that come in and do assessments of the facilities, get input from community and us to actually see what are the long-term plans. You have a demography study for the next 10 years. What does that look like?
For the consultant, does the funding for that consultant come from general fund or does it come from Prop 2
Usually
funding?
general fund.
Yeah.
Would it be
Alright.
worthwhile for us to do some sort of we do site visits to see what's happening inside, but to do a facility walk of some sort to really get an understanding of how our facilities are being used and what might be options for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I would support, getting rid of a science or art portable, but just really understanding the different spaces at each of our schools and looking at it through a different lens.
Especially the ones with impacted the most population-wise.
Is having a satellite campus an option? Like renting out space that the city owns or something to house
Like a
TK.
6th campus?
Just for TK. I don't know. I mean, it just, like I said, I getting rid of science and art
Yeah, I'm not-
classrooms.
no.
I'm not.
And I also want to make sure, because we're streaming, this is going to be recorded. I'm not proposing that either. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
Brainstorming.
brainstorming.
yeah, I'm just saying that's when it comes to when you're so constrained by facilities. That's what some people, and I'm actually
No,
not.
but that's why I think it would be
proponents,
helpful
but-
to do a walk through our.
I agree with
campuses.
the walk also because in my head, I'm trying to think about each school site
Right,
and where
exactly.
the TK rooms are versus other things, which I can bring most of that, but not all of it real quickly. So I agree with that
We can-
step. And can you remind me in terms of what's already happening at each school, elementary site How many TK rooms are there right now currently at each one?
Yeah,
So there's two at Sleepy.
you're looking at me like you want to go for it. Take it.
Oh, you know the answer, it's fine.
I want you to take it.
There's 2 classes at every school except for Glorietta.
Right, that was the one. Okay.
Yeah.
This will be handy when we do our walkthrough to kind of figure out those classes.
And Glorietta's situation, can you also remind me is there space for another one? That's where would they be going if we were to add
It
another?
did, and they
TK
did
room?
have 2 TKs last year.
Yeah.
But
They have an extra room, don't they?
they have an extra regular portable.
Okay.
So the way if the TK grows there, K moves into one of their Gen 7s. That's how it would work.
Mhm.
If you think where they're,
He's already in one of their.
Talking about
so another Gen
Yeah, the other one
7,
was
then a
first grade.
TK moves into one of their Ks.
Kind of
because
bumps
there's a
all of them
bathroom.
down.
So it's just like a domino effect.
And then he would go into that world. That.
Oh, a regular
Yeah, it's just
classroom.
regular classroom. Okay, great.
Okay.
It used to be 4th grade,
Before.
Brian, 4th
Mhm.
grade, Miss Citron. Yep. So double checking my knowledge. But then she moved up with the rest of 4th graders because we had one less 4th grade.
It's also a small space for.
Very. Mhm. And we're kind of out there
Mhm.
or down there. Yes, happy to arrange a facility walk. We've done these in all in 3 hours. You want to do like one in one day?
I think that
All
would be
of
the best to just.
I think
get it
so.
done.
Just get it all.
And then
Yeah.
sure, compare them. 'cause they're all-
Definitely.
That's
all
great.
into-
So I'll have Angel work on something. I think it'd be good, we'll work on it. Great. And then what about the idea of sort of trying to work on a master plan? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I support that. It's been a long time since that's happened. I mean, we kind of did something for the bond measures, and then before that, there was kind of the start of a facilities master plan years ago to look at deferred maintenance, but it's been a long time.
And you're not voting on it. We would, if we decide on, we would bring back like a contract process and so on for an official action. This is just sort of our exploration. Are you in favor of us even trying to explore going down that route?
We should.
Okay. so-
What does the master plan include?
You want to go?
I can,
Please.
the master plan is, an assessment of the facilities, the use, the projected use of them, blah, blah, blah. Committees would be formed as far as getting input, as far as students, teachers, people who use the facilities. They take all that information and come up with, here's what would be needed in subsequent years. It's kind of the Reader's Digest.
And you're thinking just for the elementary schools, not Elias?
No, it would have, well, even to apply for Prop 2 bond money, we have to have one for the whole district anyway. So, but yeah, no, it's for the whole district. Now, wouldn't they recommend any changes for OIS? Maybe not. But they still take it into
It's a
account.
good to have, right?
It's a good process. I've been through it a couple times in past districts. And I was really impressed with what we ended up with and how the process went.
Stuart, you've had outside, like a consultant do it for you or?
Alameda, we interviewed actually architect firms.
Okay.
We used Quattrochi Quag out there, QKA, and it was a really fun process to go through. It was really interesting, and I thought they did a fabulous job.
And do we have to do an RFP for this? Put out an RFP for the, yeah?
Yep, you're interviewing, presentations we made. Again, there's a panel, different grades on different categories. And then we come up with who we think would be best fit for our district.
I'd be in favor of exploring it. I would like to know just how much this kind of consultancy costs. It sounds like we need to have one anyway to access money, so they're going to make a hurdle anyway. But I would want to know what that cost is. And because of all the bond work, I would think that there's quite a bit of information already known, right? Every single campus has been under construction now for a while.
Deferred maintenance, list that we're
Yeah.
constantly updating, all that would
Go into it. So I think, an all in one place makes sense, but I just don't have any even ballpark figure for how much we're talking about.
So we can look at, Mika and I can also work with the King consultants that we just approved a meeting ago.
Right.
So to see what is the minimum requirement for Prop 2 to even access those dollars and how much does it cost? Just so that we don't
Yeah,
have to
that's
go grant,
actually-
we're
yeah,
not
I think
applying for a
that's
grant,
important to know
our
ahead of
own.
time. Yeah.
So what does that look like? Okay, so then we can bring back the information.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, so then the last sort of a schedule change, and we'll schedule, I'm sorry, the walkthrough.
Just finishing on that, and also just exploring if there's any possibility of getting reimbursed by Prop 2 funds.
Yes,
But yeah,
or other
Or other options, we do hire.
Mhm. The schedule, currently our district offers AM schedule, which means that our facilities are actually, well, we use them for intervention in the afternoon, but really the students are served, the classroom serve the students for half a day. I want to clarify, we're only talking TK. So many districts offer AM, PM, so the classroom is used in both. There's 2 full TKs in one facility, then you really are halving the need of the facilities. We have actually heard, I think some of us are parents, working parents, who have had students go through AM, PM. We've had actually, I think there's 4 of us in here that have gone through that, right, Mika? You too, right? I know I've battled, I have to be in the AM because I got to drop off my kid on the way to work, right? But others, so there's this perception that we must have it. But more recently, there was 3 out of the 4 meetings that has come up organically by some newer parents because of work from home, wanting to drop off kids a little later due to availability of BASC, that why isn't this an option here? For some parents, because they're dropping off their kids at 8:30, or 8:45 for late bird, and they're picking them up anyway, all at 3. So what is that an option? So, and Sarah, can you talk a little bit about what those look like and how does staffing work, or what are some options?
Yeah, so the schedule that you see at other districts running an AM PM model is a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where the AM class would go from 8 to 11:30, and then the PM class starts at 11:30 and goes till 3:00. So that's pretty typical. On Wednesday, it's a little bit more of a challenge because we want teachers to be free in that afternoon in order to engage in our PLC time, their collaboration minutes, and then also staff meeting time. So there is an overlap on Wednesday where one class, the AM class, might start at 8, where the PM class starts at 9:30, and then they're going in and out sometimes to library or to their PE time or recess or that sort of, or maybe going to see one of our specialists during that time, so that both classrooms are never in the room at the same time, but they each get the same amount of minutes that day sharing that same classroom until about the release time of our other grade levels, which is, I think, 12:50.
Mhm.
150, sorry, 150. Yeah. So that's what it looks like. You've got 2 teachers sharing one room. Some of the impacts of that would be based on what we do currently is, like, as Aida mentioned, we have intervention. TK teachers run intervention after school in their classrooms. But so we'd need to find alternative space if that were something we wanted to pursue. BASC at Wagner actually runs in the TK room, but I know soon we'll talk about maybe BASC is going to expand at Wagner and could potentially leave the TK rooms. So yeah, I don't know, questions around that?
I would like to, maybe we can survey parents to see the data behind that and what the community responds with to that, with the different schedules, especially with the TKers coming in younger and younger. And then also, how will that affect BASC, right? And those numbers that Kiva showed us at the last meeting, especially in the afternoon with certain grade groups.
We
Right.
talked to Kiva a little bit about this already because she was presenting BASC information at our TK night. And she comes from a system like this.
Yeah.
She thought this would actually alleviate the afternoon because if you're splitting some kids morning and afternoon, because it's so impacted in the afternoon, most of our kiddos are in basket
Anyway.
TK users. So, but yes, we can demonstrate what that looks like. We can go through the current sign-uppers. Sorry, it's Friday. So,
And staffing.
and yeah, so Brian, do you want to talk a little bit of what staffing?
So if we had that, regardless, if we had 2 classrooms for 2 TK or 1 classroom they're sharing in the AM, PM, we would need 2 groups of teachers to 1 teacher in the morning or AM, PM, same with the instructional assistants or the aides, a part of that.
Okay.
So regardless, we're still going to be on the hiring side.
There are districts that, and I don't have experience with any of that, is where they actually have the teacher teach both.
That's what I was wondering about.
They teach the AM and the PM, so they're literally teaching 2 groups. That's not what we're presenting. We're talking about 2 separate teachers, which then, because we would still, again, we haven't written down a schedule, even like mapped it out. We're just talking about what's out there that we know in neighboring districts, is because we utilize TK teachers for intervention, which is a really great model. So a PM teacher could still do AM intervention, AM teacher still could do PM intervention. And they're not doing double caseload of TK. That's a long day with a lot of 4-year-olds. So we were still doing the same time, 2 separate teachers with their aides.
And we'd have to work with labor partners.
Of course, yes. So all of this is negotiable, yeah, or negotiated, yeah.
What about the socialization for the kids though, if they're AM, PM and they never get to interact, they don't get to meet all the kids in their grade level, and I mean,
I think that's probably similar to how it is now. Like you might not,
even on the school sites that have 2 TK
even if
classrooms,
you-
they're not.
so they're with each other at recess. But right now at Florida, we just have 1 TK. So that already exists for that group. They're by themselves at recess.
There's also ways on that Wednesday that they can do recess together.
Yeah.
Like in adjusting the schedule so then they have that social aspect as well.
I think one thing that works really well already is that our school day starts at 8 a.m. And because our school day starts at that 8 a.m. start time, it does lends itself to working well for an AM PM model. It's much harder to do AM PM models where your school day starts later because your PM gets out so much later. We're talking about maybe 3:30 or like a closer to 4 o'clock release on later school schedules. So that bodes well. Our already existing elementary school schedule does work well for an AM PM model.
Wednesdays sound the most complicated to me,
Yes.
for sure, but the fact that they could overlap for social reasons actually would be a nice thing, but I think that Wednesday is a pretty complicated day that makes this hard. Would you anticipate, based on the numbers that we have and the fact that at most elementary schools, there are 3 classes per grade level and that enrollment's been pretty stable with occasion of like my son's class, it was only 2, right? But generally you're looking at 3 once they get to kindergarten. So if that's the case, is there a thought about 2 AM TKs and 1 PM, and that leaves that other classroom available for the intervention and whatever else is happening?
Yeah.
It seems hard to get away with just 2 classes at a site, almost
Yes.
impossible based on what I'm looking at, right? Unless you combined a different site. And I guess that's another, I'm kind of rambling now, but one other option. But I know when TK wasn't mandatory and Ben was enrolling at Sleepy Hollow, it was just a combo class. Like, would you like TK? It's happening at Sleepy Hollow this year. And that's where you got yourself for that year. And then the following year, actually, most of the class ended up going back to Wagner where they were zoned. So is that an option? I know that's really difficult, harder on parents than to have multiple schools. But if you are really close on numbers, is it acceptable to say for TK, you're going here and then back to your school, or just has
We
the
do
law
that
changed on
already. We redistrict kids
all the time
all the
anyway?
time. We're trying not to do that as much because it's hard. And we're really trying
Yeah,
hard to
yeah.
keep siblings together so that the parents are, I don't know that we have any siblings that are separated. But I mean, we were dealing all summer long with, because there were so many new enrollees last summer, there was a higher number of redistricting than the last couple of years. But that does happen. I'm sorry for TK, you're going here,
Right.
and then they get they get to go back. But it's emotional for the parents. It's hard for them to get there. Yeah.
I also think of this as part of our schools now, just to
Yes.
have a TK that we really should be avoiding.
Right.
doing that.
I
I
think
will
one classroom is not
No,
gonna cut it. You're not gonna
No.
have only 2 cohorts out of school.
no. I'm gonna throw
Oh,
just
sorry.
another wrench that just coming up in the last couple of days, and that's why it's actually not on a slide. I'm sorry, because, Brown Act, and we're trying to, is, I'm gonna look to my partner across over there. But there is another aspect of and I don't know if it's it's a enrollment trend or an enrollment blip this year. But we run early intervention. We partner for early intervention with Moraga, in our EIP, early intervention program, which is our students with IEPs. Those facility needs are the same needs. Everything that we need is this is the facility. I mean, currently, I think it's 13 out of 20 students in Moraga,
15.
or 15 out of 20. I'm sorry, okay, so the numbers change daily. Are Orinda residents. Yeah, that was not the case in the past. This is so that's why, is it this year? Is it a growing trend? And we don't know those projections because we don't know what 1-year-olds' needs are at this moment. So these are 3-year-old students. We'd like to serve those students here with our programming, with our communication, with our as much as possible. We do not. So that is the other option, is if we were able to either have additional facilities, just not quite sure where, but if we were able to condense facilities or have a morning option or an afternoon option somewhere, or more facilities, there is the other need is the preschool need.
Can you share, just clarifying, what are the grades for
Go
those
ahead.
15?
What are the
The
grades?
grades for the 15?
So they're 3. So they're 3.
So it's TK or,
So quite a few of them will go to TK.
yeah,
The students who turn 4 more in that April or May, we really look at them to say, or April on until that August date, we really look at them to say, okay, is TK appropriate for you, or would you benefit from another year of preschool? So it's really looking at that. But the majority of those students will be going to TK the next year.
okay.
I believe I said the other day, 5 meetings have already been set up with me from Regional Center to talk about incoming preschoolers for next year that we need to start doing assessments for. So the numbers are growing significantly in the past, I would say 2 years. They've increased quite a bit. Part of it is parents are now working from home, so they're with their child more often, so they're seeing things and want to go and have their student assessed. Others are just people moving into the area. So that's a significant increase. I've reached out to the regional center to see if they can give me a heads up, like, how many 2-year-olds do you have that you think when they turn 3, you might be able to refer to us? They're not really open with that information. They're not really good at getting that back to us. But we've been working very closely, obviously, with Moraga, with the program that they have there, and just seeing what the numbers look like, seeing the impact there. We really think that most likely we're going to have to open up our own in the next year or two.
Yeah, I think that is the path that we're on. How do we serve students here? Also, Moraga's numbers are growing too, and they're limited in facilities and have this same situation. So I just want to put that out there as we go through these considerations.
And for that, to your point about the 15 in Raga, so then would it be possible for those students to be at Delray or?
Yes, so
Okay.
so that's going to be for next year, majority of those students, I think, would be coming to.
The majority of the students are coming.
TK,
I
yes.
believe there's 2 or 3 currently there that, as of this moment, might be staying there, but we're getting ready to start doing those meetings in March. And we'll be able to have a firmer grasp.
Those are one-to-one, one-on-one meetings.
So the majority of them are coming into TK for next year.
So 13 out of the 15-ish? Okay.
And out of that, I would say possibly 5 into the SDC program.
I think it's definitely worth exploring the AM PM for all the reasons we just said, but also given that the state's not giving any money for facilities, the projections are that enrollment eventually just stays pretty static. So I think not over investing in facilities and over cramming our campuses right now makes some sense. And given the short TK day, there's a lot of time those classrooms are open, right? And they're already used for the same purpose. I think understanding parents' kind of wishes for that is helpful. And I think you might find a variety. The basket is certainly,
Mhm.
if this, I feel more comfortable offering that and not kind of twisting parents' arms into it because they seem to be using it anyway, right? Those basque numbers seem to be like the majority of TK students
Yes.
are going to basque. So if they went in the morning versus the afternoon, they
Mhm.
were going to be on campus
Mhm.
anyway. I think understanding that Wednesday schedule would be helpful to know how that would really look and feel with a lot of people at one time. And then I guess kind of understanding how AM PM assignment might
That was
work.
gonna be my question, is how you
Who
determine.
determines what placement you get? And certainly not everyone would be happy with the placement if they wanted what they, but how would that come to be?
So I'm hearing, we'll work on a potential schedule draft just to show you. Survey, Basque, programming, because we would want to work with Kiva just to demonstrate a draft of what that would look like. And then we can come back and with the planning of enrollment and placement and so on. Okay.
Do you think this would solve the facility challenge though?
And we could map that out. as
Yeah,
well.
because I'm still concerned that this won't resolve.
And we
that.
can look at that as well. Yeah.
There's some site.
And I think on top of all of the other facility, the walkthrough of the facilities, looking at those as well. Okay,
When would the survey go out?
well, so
You
that's
think-
my next question is when, so this is all sounding like a follow-up.
Mhm.
So, would you like another session like this, or would you
I
like
think
to
that would be
agendize how would you like to handle this?
I think another session will be
Like this?
helpful,
Okay.
especially, yeah, if we have the master facilities, we've walked each
Like a
site.
walkthrough?
Yeah, we walked each site, have the demographic data in hand,
Okay.
and then we can
Okay.
go from there, potentially. No,
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about timing in terms of
Mhm.
trying to get another session. I don't know if this is something that really should just be brought for action at our next regular meeting, if there's enough.
When would a decision need to be made? Like whether you're gonna do an AM and a PM? Like how,
I mean, it's hiring, right? I mean, we definitely need to do a little bit of time on this. I mean, I would say almost by end of February, we'd want to know, right?
you'd want to plan, like this is what we're
I'm
doing.
looking to Sarah and
Well, I'm thinking the hiring is required, but.
Anyway,
Right. So,
I mean, I think between surveys and information, we'd probably need another a month. So by the end of February. So I don't know that I would bring this to March meeting, or do we want another special? Well, we can talk about that, right? We can talk about
So
that.
then you would survey the families that have indicated that they want TK.
Enrolled in TK.
Mhm.
And then
I was just more
scheduling
concerned
this in
about
February.
scheduling other
Yeah.
No, I
meetings,
agreed.
Yeah. just timing.
Mhm. Well, no later than March,
Right.
10th
Right.
meeting, no later
Right.
than March 10th meeting. Okay,
I think we
Okay.
can walk the campuses sooner rather than later.
Oh,
That would be.
we'll work with Angel next week to schedule those. Okay. Okay, this was the, just a conversation around Basque. Just to keep in mind, Basque is gonna, I think we've already talked about this quite a bit. TK and K students make up the highest percent in Basque. Basque is gonna get impacted with the increase in TK students. And yes, we already have costs and are in a full process of adding another portable
Mhm.
for Basque at Wagner. This very brief RIS enrollment is projected to be flat. It's been generally flat with a slight decline over the last decade or so. We are doing, because there's empty classrooms up there, here and there, so we are repurposing those. Probably the biggest one as part of the modernization is the staff room is turning, they need a place to eat. So we're making that into kind of a mini NPR and so on. So, and I think the other piece is the staffing. Lower enrollment requires lower staffing. So I think that's something that we'll be working on as we do master scheduling. And we just want to make sure we include the graph so that you can see. The red ones are the projections by a demographer. So I do think actually 24, 25 numbers are coming in just slightly higher. We had like 6 new kids just enroll. So, but, so that's,
And then, of course, it will go up with this new TK cohort eventually.
not
Potentially.
necessarily. That number's okay because
Yeah.
they're still the same in 6th grade and 7th
Yeah.
grade. The bands are okay. It's just that we basically just added a whole new grade level. Yeah. But they're not projecting to go up. Yeah. And this is very much what's happening at Miramani as well with their decline in enrollment. Yeah. Any questions on any of that before we move into this next topic? Okay.
No, I guess, sorry, just the
Yes.
ask at Wagner, when is that coming to us for approval then?
The portable is gonna,
Yeah, update meeting with budgets and probabilities set up for next week.
okay, so
We're in the
February
process
10th.
of setting that up.
The portable itself. We've already, they presented 4 different budget options to us and we went with what's most affordable and the design, and then they're gonna come with an actual proposal to the board at the.
And we reached out to see what it would cost to lease to the temporary, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. But yes, we've already mapped it all out. Okay, okay. Special education programming. So it's always our goal to offer a program that supports the least restrictive environment for all of our students with IEPs. There's a very general overview of the programs that our special education offers. That's majority of our students benefit from the instructional support program, or ISP, which is offered at all of our schools. In many places, that's called the resource program. We also offer full inclusion at all of our schools. And then we have offered a special day class in the past. This year, that class was temporarily suspended because we didn't have enrollment needs. It was in the past held at Wagner Ranch. And then now, as we've already talked about, we have a handful of students already coming back. We know more than just the new 5 that you mentioned, at least, but we have more than that coming in. So that is the plan, to have SDC class for elementary school coming back and the course continuing at OIS. So our enrollment drives programming, and it's no different in special education. So the student needs are driving what we offer at every school site or across the district. So we're going to continue offering ISP, of course, at all the school sites. And we're going to continue as much as possible to offer full inclusion, and it's going to be offered at all school sites. It is always our goal, again, to have students be in full inclusion as much as possible. We are, however, seeing increased needs and need for special day class at elementary school. So we will be offering that, and we do, where we're seeing the need is for it, and I just want to make sure that I put that on. I did. So I'll go into detail. It'll be at the elementary school, at the OIS, and then we want to enhance it with a collaboration with Moraga so that we don't have this up and down in enrollment, and we can make the enrollment a little more consistent so that we're not eliminating program for a year, bringing it back, and so on, so that it can be consistently offered. So speaking about the special day class at the elementary level is, we, as mentioned, we have evaluated every single school site for where can we offer the most robust placement of the facility. And while it used to be at Wagner, that is our most impacted school. We also went through the enrollment of where our students currently living. And it happens to be that it's on that side of the district. So, so we are preparing for it to be offered at Delray Elementary School. We have found a location and walked it, and it's being in design with HKIT Architects. For a location is determined based on, again, enrollment facility, school impaction, and a bit potential growth. So we know that we can support the growth at Delray. So our goal is to offer it in bands of grades. In the past, it used to be TK through 5. Our idea is to offer a TK through 2. And then as that group of students goes up, they will be 3 through 5. And then we would add another TK through 2 as needed. So it would be really 2 SDC classes. And hopefully at the same school site, so the students are not moving back and forth between different schools, right? The middle school has been full inclusion, but technically there's been some need, as identified by Stephanie and the staff, for a little more support in the special day. So they're starting to plan next week, right? So same, and then we would also bring in support and could collaborate with Moraga as well and offer it to some of their students, just like they're offering it to some of ours. What am I missing here? Tell me.
So for the middle school in particular, it is inclusion. We have students going out to general education, and some are very successful. Some are successful for, say, core being 3 periods, are successful for going to 2 periods of core, but that 3rd period of core is just too much. So really looking at what supports are needed to help them be successful. So my theory is always to be have as much inclusion as you possibly can, but we also know realistically we have some students who need more support. So it's looking at the students that we have, the students we have coming up, and developing a program for all of them based on the level of support that they need. So looking at that special day class and saying, okay, we know that all the students really need this skill that they need to work on. This class period is when we'll be able to work on those goals. We'll be able to work on life skills. We'll be able to work on basic functions that they need to be able to continue to work on. But hey, the student's extremely good at math. We're going to have them go out in general education math, look at the support, look how we can also support when they come back to their home base of that SDC, how we can continue to bolster up those skills. So just really look at helping it be a successful transition. I feel like this year we just have some students who have really struggled with that transition into full-time general education. And so looking to make it be more successful, help them build those skills that they need. We have a lot of remedial skills that might need to be worked on, work on those skills so they can continue to push forward. And then also working with Akalani to figure out, the Akalani School District, to figure out what do they need to be able to make it a smooth transition to them as well.
Is there just one teacher that's in the classroom?
There's one teacher and multiple SSAs. And so the special education department all works together. They have their team meetings. They also work with the general education teachers. So really working with both aspects. We're looking at making sure that general education teachers understand what they need to be working with, understand how we can help them and how they can help the students to make sure that that's a successful, I can't even say successful, successful transition as well.
And in terms of need, I know this is year by year and student by student. So, and then we're going to get to the course catalog, but I think you identify both of these as moderate in terms of support.
Correct. It would be the moderate band. How I look at it is that if you're really a mild student, you're going to be in that inclusion, you're going to be in that general education classroom. It might be an area where you're a few grade levels behind in math. So we're going to look how to help you with that, or same with English. But the areas that you're strong in, we have you out in general education support.
So what about, the severe students? What are our plans to meet the needs of those students?
So currently, our students who would classify under that category, you only have about 2. And so it's working with partnering districts to make sure that they have the support. We don't want to create a class where they feel like they're singled out or they're not having that socialization opportunity. If as a population changes, because it changes constantly, we see the need for a more severe class, and we would work on restructuring and adding that in as well.
So I think that's actually really a good question and a good transit point of, I think we're bringing the catalog to you, which is the next conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And from now on, that's a plan to do that annually. It's revised and proposed to be brought to you every December at a regular board meeting for approval. And based on what are the interests of students and what are we offering in regular, and then the descriptions would be changing every year based on what are we offering. And I think these specific classes are, like next year, it could be a 3 through 5 class in elementary school, or it could be a different description for a special day class at the middle school, depending, because it's driven by the need of the IEPs and the placements of the students. And we want to be responsive to that. I mean, we're a tiny district. If you were large, the next big districts like a Mount Diablo or San Ramon, whose high schools are the size of our own district, right? I mean, they can offer multiple classes that are very distinct in meeting student, all sorts of different, and they know that a year in advance, years in advance, that they can offer all those. We have to know who the kids are coming in and offer based on that. And work through partnerships with our neighboring districts to really support all of our kiddos. So I think these descriptions are going to change a little bit annually to make sure that we're supporting the students that we have.
And with collaboration with Moraga, can you remind me at the middle school level what that is going to look like or currently looks like?
So we're working, right now we have the relationship where if we need a student who needs more of a counseling enriched program, we can work with them to make sure that they have a space. But we're creating a more dedicated program for counseling enriched. The mental health needs are significant and just growing with students who have school avoidance, students who just have a lot of anxiety coming to school. So we're really working with them to have that program so that we can partner together for that.
Moraga.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Moraga will have the counseling enriched program, and then we'll have the special day class, the moderate special day class.
At the middle school level as well. So
Correct.
kids who are in Moraga will, and beginning next year?
25, 26.
And right now, we do have that partnership where if they have a student, we'll talk to one another, but this is just creating a more formal structure for them.
Yes.
Is it possible, because our programs are changing and expanding and we're potentially collaborating with another school district to have,
It's really regionalizing
our program, to have a special workshop or something dedicated to special education programming,
Yeah.
specifically around the collaborative efforts, the needs, moderate, severe, what have you, and just to see, so we have a better picture of what we're reimagining for this program as it expands.
We planned a presentation around special ed. I can't remember when it was, April or something. But we can do a workshop itself, and especially once we know more, like what does the collaborative MOU look like? What do the numbers look like? So it may, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had mentioned something similar to Aida in our meeting as well.
I would actually like to see a portion of that include just education for myself, for board members, because I think this is a really, it's just a complicated area. So the more that I have some background in it, but more understanding of the whole process, from early intervention through and how those determinations are made and where students belong and how they're included, just kind of helps with our decision making. I think it doesn't need to be long, but that is like a piece that we have presentations and other things. I feel like I know ELD pretty well now, but understanding that, especially as any sort of collaboration with Moraga is more formal.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Anything else on this?
This, I think, has something to do with it on the
Del Rey, we just,
yellow,
no, those are just like a beyond the contract number.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. Okay, and we're not taking action on this. We just want to intro it and then all school districts should have a board approved, especially when you have a secondary school, and we do, middle school. So we should have a course offering or what are the programs that we have. So we're putting that under a course catalog. We also believe that we should all have a course of study for each grade level and course. And that is, what is the curriculum taught? What is the sequence of the curriculum? What are the topics? What are the approved curriculum and instructional materials, grading components, considering that the homework there's a law about specifics of what is the expectations of the homework coming into place next year. We would put the homework expectations for each grade level in there as well. And then what is the process for the revision of that as well? So those should all be parts of what is public and approved by the board. So what we're bringing, what we will bring for action, or what you were asking you to act on, is our course catalog. So it is, as we're calling, it is 25-26 course catalog, meaning that there will be a 26-27 catalog in December. So it is not in perpetuity, right? So we've developed it based on what is the current course program offerings. So this is what's happening with some minor changes, like what we just talked about, the SDC, which we know we're going to be offering in 25-26. We also made some adjustments. For example, I'll just use an example of woodworking class at OIS. Students used to be able to repeat it and they would just make it like more advanced project. Well, now it's recommended we can repeat it multiple times. We discussed this as a board last year. You actually take it once, and if you're taking a more advanced class that's now considered advanced woodworking, then you should get different credit for that. And then you're done with that. And now you take a different elective. So this way we're encouraging kids to take more electives in their middle school explorations, and you get specific coding. So each one of these classes is connected to a code in Aries. So, and we have brief descriptions. Course catalog, it doesn't go into depth, but there are brief descriptions of offerings in our district. We're also asking to include, it's a new regulation. CSBA has had it forever, but we just didn't have it in our policies. We do have a board policy 6141, but wanted to add a regulation 6141 that there should be, if Sarah wanted to review the curriculum, she is asked to actually have a committee and not just do it herself. And that committee should include teachers. And if she wants to, she can include other experts too. But also what we did add, which is not part of CSBA, but it is something that, for example, our partner districts do, is if we wanted to include new courses, like creative writing, which we've talked about here for a while, is that it's not something that Mika just adds willy-nilly or that some teacher adds willy-nilly, that it is actually going through a process, that it's brought up, there's a timeline for it, and that it's reviewed. And that Sarah, as the director of curriculum, examines that it's like, well, we already have the same course. Why would we bring that? It's replacing, like, we have now 7 woodworking classes. Okay, that's not appropriate. So either eliminate this one and add this one new one, or no, sorry, that's not coming in front of the board. So there is like at least timeline, and if approved, we'll develop a form in the process for that. And then it would be all culminating in this course catalog that comes to the board in December. And then finally, this is just the beginning. It's step 1. It's just what we offer, but really the exciting work is the development of course of study, which really every single course should have. So that will start, and I actually think that we should start this summer. It's really nice to have focused committees over the summer to work when you're not, releasing teachers from the classrooms, having substitutes in classroom, which is negatively affecting students. But if you can have committees of teachers that first week of school, work on some of these and take them on. A lot of that work has already been done. It's just compiling them into courses of study into a comprehensive way. But a course of study will literally have, here's the standards you're teaching, here's a general sequence, here's the instructional materials, here's what you can supplement it with. Here's how much homework you should or should not have. Here's how you base your grades on it. And what's great about that is that, if you're a brand new teacher in a district that has a really good comprehensive study or course of study, you come in July, you're hired, nobody's around, and your curriculum director literally gives you, here's what the basis of your curriculum is. And you know it. Here's what I'm supposed to, here's what I'm going to be kept accountable to. Also, as a parent, like, oh, this is what my kid is learning when they're coming home. And if they're doing homework 5 hours a night, you can go like, well, that's not it, right? Or if they have no homework, or you can, there's expectations there. So that's the next step. That takes just sort of a general course catalog into much more detail and a really, it's a very exciting process and systematic. Yeah.
I know OAS will be students will be signing up for their classes, I think, in the next few weeks, right, in February. So is there going to be cross-check between what they're signing up for and what's actually?
Yeah, we're working, well,
Okay.
yeah, so I actually met with all the counselors. They've been making comments in here. And so this was based on together. So now the counselors, so our upstairs data specialist and their registrar will make sure that the codes in Aries match up with the course catalog.
Okay.
So if I'm an 8th grader and something is a 6th grade class, that doesn't show up for me on a sign up. Or a 6th grader doesn't get an 8th grade class.
Mhm.
Also, like your Miramani student probably already received their course signups,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They have like the course sign up cheat sheet.
Mhm.
And here's what my regular schedule looks like. You're gonna have to take PE, you're gonna have to take social studies, whatever, right? And here's your 2 spots for pick your adventure. And here's your pick your adventure choices, right? And that's what we will,
Model.
because it makes it very clear, transparent. You don't have to look for 10 different places, but it's all based on this course offering, which is board approved. And it's not something that we can, Sarah can't just decide tomorrow, I also want to add this other class. It's my favorite class. And we can't just say, yeah, yesterday we decided 6th graders can take this, but I really want 8th graders to take it too. Like it is actually, there's a reason for why these offerings are done like this. Okay, so questions in general on that? All right. Do we have not about this. No. So I'm happy to move into actual course catalog
Yeah.
for an action if you'd like me to. do
Yeah, I
that.
just wanted to ask before we moved on to that.
So this is what so I guess I'll move to the next. I thought I had opened all this. Sorry. My internet's not working. Or here it is. So this is what the catalog looks like. Happy to take any comments, make adjustments. It's our first run through. So welcome any feedback and, but it is for an action. So if there are, I mean, we can of course come back but yes.
Well, I'm annoyed because I took my annotations in board docs and didn't click the button, so I lost some of them.
no.
I'm trying to remember what I had in my head. But I know one of them, so first of all, I think this is a huge step forward just for overall organization and progression. Or just for everybody who's a stakeholder in their kids' education. One thing that popped out to me, and Sarah, I guess I'll just direct this to you as in your position. In TK5, not something for now, but for next year as this comes up, would be reviewing technology. So it looks like it's basically the same, understandably, right? We generally have access to iPads or one-to-one devices in every classroom, and that's meant to facilitate learning, et cetera. But could it be more specific in terms of purpose? So is it at the younger grades that it's more for differentiated learning apps, of which there are many and are really great, but that could be called out? Is it for research purposes, which generally comes a little later when you can research on the computer? Is it for straight up word processing, which is something old school, but that kids need to know how to do, right? Is it for publishing their work? So the technology piece, as I was reading through, just seems to be the same. And I think it could be a little more specific. Again, not a high priority, but I do think
Tech leader is taking, that's right.
Kevin, yeah.
Kevin.
Just over time, again, I think it's great to have it all in one place, and maybe there's not a whole lot of differentiation between the grade levels, but I think there is some in terms of what is being used and how it's being used. So that was one of my comments. If anyone else has anything else, I'm just trying to recall all the things in my head.
I have kind of a list of things. You want me just to kind of go through my?
Yeah, and and it'd be great if it's for current adjustment and like futures, just so we know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so one, it would be current adjustment for elementary. I know we've got music and art in there, but I know that we also have band instruction for like 4th and 5th graders. They have pull out, so I didn't know if we should be adding that as part of it as well. I know it's kind of based on sign up, but I think it would be good to have that in there. So that was one thought. Something I had mentioned to Aida separately. 4th grade identifies specific text examples for reading, but none of the other grades do. So wondering if we should be either adding that for others or taking it out and putting that in course of study instead, or, but just to have some consistency. And maybe it's the fourth grade is really the only one that calls out specific books that they're reading, but that was just something that kind of jumped out at me as an inconsistency. This is more of a future comment, maybe for kind of just evaluating courses, but for OIS, it's kind of something I've raised in the past. But, we have 3 periods of core for 6th grade that has always felt like a very long period of instruction for 6th graders, just kind of, evaluating that in the future and seeing if that's really being used to its full potential. Do we really need that much time? Certainly not something for this particular thing, but just when I was reviewing it, it's outlining how long you have for each thing. That's something I would like, looked at some point. Math pathways. For advanced math for 6, 7, it lists no prerequisite, but it's really something that's based on the 5th grade teacher, right? So it kind of feels like it should have some other language in there.
There are criteria.
There's criteria, but anybody can waive them. So really,
Okay.
we say,
Because it
we
just doesn't
recommend
feel
this.
Genuine to say no prereqs, because it really is, it's not really like anybody is signing up for it. The way that we've developed the math. I don't know, just something to think about.
Right, but it is truly like, even if you're not recommended heavily, you can say, well, I still want to take it.
Yeah, I thought we've kind of moved away from that mostly. No. Okay.
Actually move towards more of it, like that we don't limit anyone.
Okay.
But we can say based on
We can say,
strengthen the language.
I just feel like it should be strengthened in some way because it's really not the same as, the other, I don't remember how we have it titled.
we can potentially just reference the criteria that's used.
So there is criteria.
Yes, there's a test students do. There is some teacher input, but we are actually transitioning right now to weighing the assessment results much higher than teacher input on behaviors. It's in alignment with our grading work at OIS as well, like how bias plays into those types of things and how organized a student is. We need to reflect on whether or not that really should impact their placement in an accelerated coursework, because there may be lots of students who aren't super organized in 5th grade, but could still thrive in an accelerated pathway. So we're evaluating that criteria, but we do have the criteria and it is public and that's on our math pathways. It's easy to include if we think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can continue going, is that? I think it was OIS, special ed, kind of similarly, it says prereq, which is course none. And it feels like we shouldn't even have that language in there because it's not like you're not just enrolling in a special ed class at OIS. It's coming from the special ed department or it's coming from an IEP or 504 or something like that. So just felt like that area could be tightened up a little bit in terms of, who's really being placed in those classes and in that program.
Can you hold on one second? I just need to access it in a different way so that we can, do you mind just?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Sorry. I want to make sure I capture everything. And I can't do it through the PDF. And this way, if I do it like this, then I can actually see it. Okay, I'm sorry. This is, okay. So we were in middle school
So, yeah,
in
OIS,
special education.
special
Okay,
education.
here we go. Now
Just
I
that,
can.
and it's because it was standardized, I think, for the whole thing, had
Mhm.
prereq for all of it, but it just,
Yes.
I don't know, I just felt like there should be language in there saying, based upon determination from the special education department.
Right here where the
or-
prerequisite
Yeah,
is. Sure.
some other language in there that kind of makes it clear that this isn't.
Yeah, we have something different in like the peer tutoring, I think, so there's no reason, I mean, we're in charge of this, so it's not, I think like application, not sign up was
Yeah,
done
something
here.
like.
So
yeah,
we can
something
absolutely,
specific,
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Mhm.
See that, I think you've already added Coral back in, right?
I did,
Okay.
yeah, that was the mission, yes.
And then the other question I had raised was just about Spanish at OIS because it limits to 7th and 8th graders. And I know that we do have a pathway that was approved several years ago for sixth graders to be.
We did.
As-
Yes. Yeah. We did.
How many sixth graders do we have enrolled right now in our world language?
11, sometimes less.
We still have students that.
But we have
are
students.
Sixth graders,
So we can absolutely do
feel like
that.
it should be
Yes,
like that.
yeah.
And remind me then if they do 6 and 7, do they have the option to go to Miramani to begin?
No.
Or they do not?
They do 1A and 6, 1B and 6.
Yeah.
Well, you
And
can
they-
clarify.
I thought it has changed over time, or, I don't know. maybe when I
So
joined the district.
1A, so Spanish 1, high school Spanish 1 is done over 2 years, right?
Yeah,
Spanish 1,
yeah.
just like French.
Yeah.
And then we started now offering Spanish 2, or years ago. So if a sixth grader takes Spanish 1, they can actually take Spanish 2 as an eighth graders. And that class has been sometimes 11 kiddos, 12, 19 in the past. I think it's actually gone lower recently. There's some philosophical differences among some from the high school of if we should be offering this class. As a second language learner, I feel like we should be offering Spanish kindergarten on. So there's a lot of richness in dual language. But with that said, the way the Spanish jump is from Spanish 2 to Spanish 3, it's so significant that our students that take Spanish 2 as eighth graders are not making it in Spanish 3 as freshmen, as ninth graders. So they're finding themselves retaking Spanish 2 or drowning and struggling in Spanish 3. So they're hearing,
That's interesting. Is that the same with French?
we don't offer French 2.
No, but
French 2, French
French
3 is
3,
not
yeah.
necessarily that
the
big.
same,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's something about the grammar convention or how the curriculum is driven. So we're constantly hearing, please stop offering it. And we keep saying, no, thank you. So,
The curriculum is the same though. I remember approving that not long ago, right? We're
we're
using
offering the same textbook.
text.
So
Yeah.
Spanish 1
So
and
it should
2.
be
So they're making it,
through.
but it's actually for the high schoolers, jump between 2 and 3 is very difficult. It's not just us, it's really their jump is hard. So then on top of like you're coming into high school and you're taking this really hard class. So it's nothing,
Nothing with the instruction or that it's an
No, it's
easier.
not our
course in eighth grade than
instruction.
it is in ninth
it's not
grade.
us, I'm transitioning to high school and I'm taking a really challenging class. So anyway, that doesn't change anything. I think there's enough of them, it's offered to sixth graders, they can take it.
Right, that was
at
for
it.
mine.
Yes.
But
But I wouldn't mind necessarily putting a line in there that I think we actually have Spanish 2 as a challenging class or something like that. Yeah. It's a quick pace. You go from Spanish 1, spending quite a slow time teaching it to Spanish 2 is then suddenly let's go. So. And if you repeat it, then you repeat it. You still get credit.
Right.
You don't get credit for anything in middle school. So.
my last little thing was actually a knit. It was on page 30. There was an open parenthetical under science. In science 8, after framework, it starts with a parenthetical at the beginning and then it. The last. You see the third?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's more, but that was my short.
No, thank you. We're excited when people read it.
I read the thing.
At Sleepy Hollow, I know that students have time to go to Makerspace, and it's almost like a class, right? Is there a reason
It's
why?
not a credentialed class.
Oh.
It's really, what would you call that? Because it's like garden also.
It's an IA specialist.
I think.
Oh,
So it's almost like an
When
enrichment.
when we went to go look
Yeah.
at it, it almost seemed like.
Yes, he's
Well,
talented. This instructor.
It's
He's
Robert.
made that.
Yes, yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah. So that's why it's not in.
It's not a separate course.
But to that
But
end,
yeah, I
that's
was
an
gonna
important
look
part of the
at
curriculum.
that. Neither
Yeah.
technology or character ed, it's part of.
Right. It
So,
should be included at some, I think, in there.
so adding like
Please.
garden STEAM.
A garden.
or outdoor.
Library is included.
No, it's in terms of the garden.
Yes.
Most of them are.
Yeah, they usually go
They all
once a
have
week.
garden.
Okay.
The level is different.
So where it's included in all the school sites, which I think those two are, garden and STEAM.
Yeah, it definitely is just a piece of that
And next
elementary
year-
curriculum and should be, when you
Yeah.
get to the course of study,
Sure.
should be part of that course of study as well. Mr. Robert definitely has, there's certain projects that happen at different grade levels, so it'd be a place to start.
Okay.
I have a few more questions myself. Back to math, at OAS. Can you talk through the multi-level Common Core math support class that is listed here in the handbook? And I know, that's not always been offered, and maybe it's a case-by-case basis. It's listed for all 3 OAS grades. So can you just speak to that and how a student is placed in that and what the progression would be for those students?
Yeah.
Like, who do you want to go?
I'll start and then I'll ask you both to. We have not offered this class in a past, and it would be a case-by-case offering. Partially because, well, mainly because it is always our goal, and it should be, and a requirement to offer grade level courses. Student, we need to have students in grade level math, grade level reading. That's the floor. Common Core Math 6 is the floor for 6th graders. When we need to have our students finish middle school prepared to be successful at the high school. When they get to Mirmani, Camp Olinda, 2 schools, right, that go out of OIS or whatever, any high school at the Acalanes, their lowest level of math is Algebra 1. Period. There's no, I think one of the schools was offering Algebra A, and that's leaving, that's remedial. The middle schools that have offered non-grade level courses tend to leave their students behind. So when they come into high school, they're not grade level ready. There is no chance of them finishing with a diploma because you have to finish Algebra 1 and 2 years beyond. So it is our responsibility to have grade level courses. Last year, when we were preparing for what we have to offer, we found that we had a group, not like usually there's often a student, sometimes 2, but that needs supports that is not at grade level. Sometimes they are in an STC class, sometimes they're in full inclusion to like all the comments that Stephanie talked about earlier, and they need like a sheltered math course in support, in this STC class or so on. But we had an exceptional year where we had several students, not necessarily special ed, this is a general ed course taught by a math teacher, that were below grade level for all the reasons that we're still talking about and making sure that this doesn't happen. So it became hey, let's have a class where we can provide some intensive support, individualized, so we can get these kids caught up to grade level as much as possible, so that they can finish middle school at grade level and enter high school by Algebra 1. That was the goal of the class. It is not our goal to continue offering classes that are below grade level. So, so it's really, if I click on the math pathways, here, out of 5th grade, to stay on grade level and not hold students back, this is where they need to be in progression, right? On Common Core demands that you're on the floor. That's the floor. You can go up as high as you want, but you're supposed to stay on the floor of the opportunity. So, but because we had this sort of an exceptional year with several students if the class were to go away, let's just say we didn't have the enrollment, going back to the common enrollment drives our needs, it doesn't mean that we won't support the students. It just means that we may need to do it on an individual basis, because oftentimes we will have a student in a class that needs either modified curriculum or individualized support, or push in, pull out, co-teaching, team teaching. There's all sorts of models that we could run that is done at the grade level. Okay, takeaway, what am I missing, please?
It's also established so that if during the school year, a student starts to really struggle with the concept, they could be pulled into this to have really intensive instruction on those concepts so that they can continue to do well in their math class. So I was looking at what is the way to benefit all students. Some students are going to need this for a little bit longer because they are struggling with the concepts or they are behind, so we're trying to get them up. But other students are going to have times where they're really struggling. And so what is a class that can benefit all those students come together?
Is summer an option?
Yeah, we've talked about summer as a bridge, and possibly offering it, but it can be a requirement. It's an option. Yeah, sorry, Sarah.
Miramonte offers
Yeah.
a really robust summer math program for students who struggle, as identified by their 8th grade teacher, to help prepare them for that Algebra 1 class.
I'm just wondering before 8th grade even.
Yeah.
But just because how like the elementary schools, we have that program in the summer. Are there enough?
Oh, you like a summer school intervention? Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And we've actually, when we started offering that, that was part of there's this, and let's talk about summer bridge, like to keep going, because it isn't, talking about students that maybe are struggling in math, and we're trying to catch them up multiple grade levels. So that could be additional summer work as well, summer bridge offering. But you can't, summer's all, yeah.
But this past year, we only had special education summer school, didn't offer the intervention.
Correct.
To
Last year, yes.
years post-COVID, we did for
Were there a lot of kids that
a
took
number of
advantage?
kids.
Yeah.
Literacy, charts.
So in terms of the catalog, this course is in here. But in any course, frankly, doesn't mean it's definitely offered the following year. It'll be based on need. And the reason, I'm just looking for confirmation. The reason those grade levels are lumped is because the students coming into the class can come from any grade. That part's kind of irrelevant, right? We catch them
We
up.
have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in there right now.
And ideally, I mean, just from serving students' individual needs, this would be available to the students who need it. But I see what you're saying, if it has to be more individualized rather than a formalized class, but just kind of getting clarification on why that's in there. In terms of the pathway, so similarly,
Sorry, here.
let's see, yeah, so
Like
on 8th grade, we don't see the
geometry.
possibility for geometry, but it is noted
Correct.
lower down.
Geometry is noted, right, it's in the 9th grade class, but we actually we've had in the past 12, 13, 15, 17 kids in geometry, almost a full class sometimes. And we partner and they walk to, we offer it through Kalani's, but it's actually not offered as part of our pathway either. So it's sort of dual, but it is in our description.
Right.
As a course that is, because again, for transparency reasons, because we have had those discussions in the past, what is this class? Why does it exist?
Mhm.
Well, who takes it? So we put it in there and say, here's what geometry is, here's who takes it. This isn't actually part of our regular progression, but it is available.
So to that end, does it make sense to add something similar in terms of a notation to pathways regarding this multi-level math? The way
Here?
at the bottom, well, at the bottom is where you
Sure.
have mention of geometry. I think it shouldn't really go
Oh.
in 6th grade information. I'm not sure. Well, honestly, potentially, right? Students moving from 5th on. I'm just trying to make this document comprehensive, and I understand your point. If it's not offered every year, similarly, like maybe no students are ready for geometry one year, then it's in the course catalog, but they're not taking it, right?
Yeah. Right, and this used to exist in absence of the catalog.
Yeah.
So now we're hoping that start replacing.
I think it's still good to have.
Yeah, I mean, we were gonna actually take this chart and put it into the possibly, maybe we should even put that in a catalog as opposed to the link. Because I think it's teacher created. Sometimes there's some things in there that are.
And Miramanis includes theirs, I think. We can link it right here, but
Right,
I'm pretty
and-
sure the catalog
exactly.
actually has that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can do that. And I think Hillary had mentioned that maybe that we should do that.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have it. just-
Our own.
Yes.
Yep.
Going back to the multi-level common core math support class, I don't know if you want to add different language in that prereq section as well, just to say that that's some sort of language about it being offered when needed or description, I don't know, something. I don't know exactly what you should say, but
I think that is important too, in clarifying.
Yeah.
What it is, and also to your point, Aida, that we're obligated to offer grade level courses and why this one fits in its own category and is sort of an in between.
There are times that this could be partnered with, you'd be taking a math 6 or math 8 and a support class in the secondary that was also considered. It really is student by student.
Okay, and then lastly, regarding, I think this, we covered this when we were talking about the earlier agenda item, the descriptions for SDC classes and how specific or not specific they might be. And I understand they need to remain pretty vague, and I think it was changed slightly to add the word moderate for now.
Yeah, I talked to Stephanie yesterday, yeah.
But I did receive a question regarding why there's not specific to the OIS SDC class mention of whether those students are on a diploma track, a certificate track, and can you speak to that when it comes to our own course catalog?
Well, we don't do diplomas in K-8. We're not on a track yet. That's a high school thing. So I worked at a high school. That was the second used to come on. We actually didn't even determine 10th. Everybody in 9th grade was hopefully on a diploma track, except with an exception of really a small group that we knew was coming in and usually in an intensive SDC. But it is our goal to have everybody on a diploma track. So we don't have diplomas. We are not actually the ones who decide. It is really once they are in a high school. So we don't determine that. So it would be disingenuous to put that here because we don't have anything like that in K-8. And to Stephanie's earlier point, there could be a student coming in, dipping into SDC who is on a diploma track, or a student who's maintaining a lot of time in SDC who eventually will not be on a diploma track. So I don't know that we can put that in there quite yet because it's going to be very much determined by the IEP. Also, the laws are changing around diploma tracks, what that means. You could just be on a fully modified curriculum and actually be on a full diploma track and an SDC, or you could be an SDC and be on a certificate of completion. Again, going back to when you're a big district and you have a very sheltered intensive class, you know exactly who's in that class, and you know that that's going to be on a certificate of completion. But in our district, we're just not there because we're going kind of by the need of the students. And in this case, we're still prepping those students to be on track. So I think it's going to be case by case. So just the question is, how early can we communicate with the parents? But we also don't want to shut any doors because as they go through development, and again, we want to keep them on a grade level as long as possible. We want to keep them on that track as long as possible. So as soon as we know, we can let them know, but we also don't want to shut doors earlier than we need to. But ultimately it comes down is that we don't put kids on diploma track or not. I don't know if you want to add it.
Yeah, we have a lot of conversations in that IEP, especially 7th and 8th grade, as to what classes we feel they'll need to take in high school. We work very closely with the high school district as to what their programs look like. But right now, based on our student enrollment and the classes that we have, our students are still, the goal is still that diploma track. But like Aida said, that whole system might be changing.
Yeah.
So it's really looking at what the changes the state is coming around with.
And should there be a need for, severe, as we discussed earlier, that will also be included in the course catalog?
And yes.
Okay. And I know we'll review this
Yeah.
every year, so it'll be refreshed
If
and
we-
reviewed.
If we wound up needing to have a severe SDC class, that's when we would talk about a diploma track, because that is a definite need. When you have students who are in that moderate and mild level, it's really looking case by case as to what can we do to help them get to that diploma track, because that's always the goal.
This item is for action. Do we
Yeah.
have any public comment?
No contract, no.
Can I have one more,
Oh, yeah,
like
please.
switching gears completely? Thank you for the answer regarding the SCC classroom. And this was me trying to remember my other notes. Not for today, more for future refinement of this course catalog, and actually more for the course progression. So again, for you, Sarah. At the elementary level, when it comes to the language arts curriculum, I noted the same kind of anomaly with fourth grade having texts named and the other grade levels not. So I think that I agree with that, with tightening that up, but also as a district, we move slightly away from Lucy Calkins and more into 95%. Of some of those descriptions kind of vary a lot, or I think are pretty vague in terms of the writing curriculum specifically. So it calls out the Lucy Calkins curriculum. Some really say, we're going to do these 3 types of writing, and it's pretty clear. And some are just like, we're using this model and workshop model to flesh this out. And again, maybe that's more your course descriptions, but I think that there's a great opportunity to really refine that as teachers say, this works really well, but then I do this for this part. So I think that could just be something to work on for next year.
Great. So before we just
Yeah,
make
go
a
ahead.
motion, I just want to, because I heard this for the future. I want to make sure, because we're going to make amendments. It's really a motion to approve with amendments,
The
right?
amendments, yes.
Band,
Yeah.
4th and 5th. Take off the books in 4th grade, because that's really the only one that had them.
Mhm.
STEAM and garden,
I got that one.
flesh out ed tech.
That's
I
next
think
year.
that could be
Yeah.
future.
Special ed, removing the prerequisites. The acceleration for 6th grade, 7th grade criteria.
Yes.
Okay. Spanish 1A, add 6th grade, and then math pathways, actually add that in there. Okay. I just want to make sure everyone's in agreement with those. And there
Oh,
are
and I
no,
did notice a leadership doesn't have application required. You do,
Okay.
for OAS, you do have to apply.
And the same with
I also thought the debate team.
public speaking.
Yeah.
It's the same with public
it
speaking. You have to have taken,
But it said you had to take.
no, you don't. She said, actually in the description, as long as you have strong public skills, according to.
because this past year, I believe they had to apply and she,
It used
there
to be a
was.
selection.
Yeah, it
It is
is.
selection,
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that needs to go in there.
Okay. Selection. And.
Only for 7th.
Yes,
For the.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and leadership. I just want to make sure everybody's agreeing with those. Okay. Okay,
Can I say 2 things that I noticed?
yeah.
Drama 2 prerequisite course is drama 2.
I guess in this, yeah.
Mhm. And?
And I don't know, chorus needs this one I really don't know. Chorus needs the prerequisite course drama 2.
Oh, you know what? Because it's, it was a copy and paste. I added, got it. Yes, got it. Okay. Chorus prereq and, okay.
This item is up for action. Is there a motion with the amendments that Ida just listed?
This is Hillary. I move that we approve the course catalog with the identified amendments.
Is there a second?
This is Katie, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Moving on to item C.
Oh, yes, there's one more. Okay, So we talked about this a little bit in the earlier presentation, but it's an addition of the AR. So this entire AR is a new AR. The first part is really adopted from the CSBA, and it talks about the curriculum development and the selection process. And really our local process for the new course proposal, course provision would be that any teacher administrator can develop a new course. It would have to come by October 30th. In that October, Director of Ed Services is reviewing it, and it really comes to the board in November. I know there's a space missing there, but that's like a whole board doc thing that Angel will have to fix when it's adopted. Sorry. All the directors are laughing because it's such an issue. And then that is not an associate superintendent. We'll switch that. It's a director of educational services who propose it to the board of trustees. And then we develop course of study in the spring. That would be a traditional process.
After I
Yes.
do this summer
Yes,
process.
yes,
So,
yes.
Okay, yeah,
That would be, yes.
great. Sounds great. Any discussion, any public comment?
No comments.
Okay, this item is up for action. Is there a motion?
This is Hillary. I move that we approve the new AR 6141.
This is Vanita, I second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. All right, motion passes. And with that, we come to our third item, adjournment.
Hillary, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
this Katie, I second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.